Tell me if you can see me. I can see you. Yay. I'm waiting for Rena or Karen Brown. Yay! Okay, good. I'm like, somebody's going to see me soon, right? Welcome to session 1, Pillars of Priestessing for August, everybody. Wow. We are here. I am here. You are there. And we have big work to do this month. I hope you are excited. I hope you're ready. I hope I'm ready. So happy to see you guys. So welcome. Tonight's class, I know it's my little palm tree today. This is my way of bringing in a little illumination. One of the things I'm doing for my birthday this weekend is I'm taking my kids to the beach for the first time since March. That was what the kids really want to do this weekend, and so I'm making it kind of a family weekend. So I'm really excited. It'll be my first time to the beach since March too. So hi, welcome. Is anybody new tonight? Brand new to Soul Shift? Like this is your first Soul Shift class? And happy early birthday to Debbie, who's August 23rd. We've got a lot of Leos this month, so make some space for everybody. Yeah, that could be a lot of fun. Anybody here for the first time? First time. We do have new members. So it's always fun to know if this is your first session of Soul Shift. That's an exciting one for you. I know. It's going to be so good. We have really needed like a family day out in nature, not at home or in a garden somewhere. So I'm really ready for them. Okay, so Anita's new. This is fun. And Laura's new. Nicholas is new. Welcome in, you guys. It's great to have you with us. Welcome to the Soul Shift family. It's really great to have you. Look at that. Catherine Osborne. And Alex is new. Lauren Conway is new. Kind of. I've known Lauren for a long time. I actually married Lauren to her husband, who's also an amazing soul. So look at that. It's Andrea's first class. It's Rachel's first class. Very nice. Laura Winkle is new. Look at that. It's right. It's correct. It's accurate. This is so good. It's Lisa Williams' first live. Ash is new. So I just want to say hello and welcome to all of you. I know. Some, every month, some people go and some people come. It's kind of like the ebb and flow. And a lot of times if people take a break from Soul Shift, they come back a few months later. So it's nice. It's kind of a revolving door. And I make it like that because that's how I am too. Sometimes I'll start a class and stop a class and start a class and stop a class. Although most of the time I'm kind of I'm one who tends to hang around. And Brittany's like, this is not my first class. So whether you're new or not, welcome in. This is the session of Soul Shift called Pillars of Priestessing. And I have a lot to share with you tonight, as you might imagine. A lot is on my mind this evening. So I want to dive right in. And what's really interesting is a lot of what I had planned for tonight is actually proving to be exactly what's needed. We have a big month ahead. This month we are studying one of my favorite civilizations and pantheons in the entirety of human history, which is the Aztec civilization. Are you guys familiar with, I should have printed a map. Are you guys familiar with the topography of North America, Central America, and South America? Is that something you're relatively fluid with? What we should probably do is put an image up in the Facebook group. I'll find an image that gives you a good topography. Are you guys familiar? Yes or no? You would not have tools yet. The tools are all shipping. So not to worry. They're shipping. If you're not familiar with what's happening with the tools, in some parts of the U.S., people really are not familiar with what's going on with the pandemic, which is okay. I've learned that some people really don't know. Because some parts of this country are not hit as hard as like California, for example. But all of the countries that supply our tools, most notably Brazil, India, and China, are still closed because of COVID-19. So all of the tools have been kind of eking their way out. So if there's a delay, what I want you to know is it's not a Team SG delay. And these are tools that we ordered for you for right now in February, January, February. So we ordered them early enough. We had everything made early enough. It's just that those countries can't ship anything. And so I just want you to know, I mean, I'm not saying this as a cop-out. It's just, it's genuinely not our fault, and we're as frustrated as you are. I'm hoping that the back half of the year will all be healthier. And if you wouldn't mind just joining me in some prayers for Brazil, India, and China, because it's still very, very challenging in those countries, and so we're still waiting on a lot of different things. But your tools for this month are in the house. They are shipping. We're shipping them as fast as we can. In some cases, it's been very costly to us, because I don't know if you've noticed, but in some cases we've sent you 2 shipments of tools so that you could get your early tools early and then a second shipment later, and we paid for the shipping on that for everybody who's in Soul Shifting Crystal Masters. So I just want you to know we're also making some real commitments and sacrifices to try and make sure you get your tools. So it's true, Heidi Cruz, we are our greatest tools, but people like to have their tools too, which I completely understand. I just want you to know sometimes there's a delay, and it's not because we're not doing our best. It's just we're in a kind of a pandemic, and it's challenging everywhere. But some people don't know that those countries are closed, so I think it warrants kind of a little bit of reminding sometimes. Okay. USPS is having its own challenges. God bless the USPS. But in all sincerity, a lot of our friends and our suppliers in those countries have asked us continually, please pray for us, please continue to hold us in your ceremonies, because this is hitting them hard. It's hitting their families hard. It's hard for everybody. So we're doing what we can. In the meantime, we learned how to work without tools, which is also really great too, because if you're like me and you travel a lot, at some point you will be somewhere wanting to do some ceremony and you won't have any tools. And here's what's really cool. What I'm teaching you this month is portable, meaning everything you're going to learn this month you can do anywhere, anytime, because all you need are your hands. So let me back up to the beginning. I always ring a bell at the beginning. Session 1 has begun. So, let me back up to the beginning for a second. When I was young, I grew up, my grandmother was a minister, and my mom was a very devout, born-again Christian. And while I don't adhere strictly to those traditions anymore, or that particular tradition in every way that they did, I do remember certain things that I was taught, and they're still part of the core of my foundation. And my grandmother used to tell me that certain people had healing hands. She used to talk about the laying on of hands. Did you ever hear that saying, the laying on of hands? That certain people had the capacity to channel healing energy, and by placing their hand onto a person or onto a building or onto the ground, that they could actually transmit a healing frequency through their hands, that was a spiritual gift that they had. Do you remember hearing about anything like that? So this isn't just a Christian thing I came to learn through the rest of my life. And one of the practices I'm going to teach you, I'm going to start to edge toward it tonight, but I'm going to officially do it with you during week 3. So week 3 is going to be half Aztec healing ceremony, traditional. We're going to do a legit traditional pre-Mexican, right, Mesoamerican healing tradition. Once you get your tools, that's what's happening week 3. And everybody should have their tools by week 3. That ceremony that I'm going to teach you is a ceremony that I was led through by an Aztec healer. And I've never seen anyone else do it. I have tried desperately to find records or additional information or documentation, and there just is kind of nothing. There's nothing except exactly the ceremony that I received and everything that I was taught. So what you're going to be doing with me in session 3 isn't anything in books. It's not anything that you'd be able to research and find online. The person who did this ceremony with me has a direct Aztec healing lineage. And so this ceremony that I'm taking you through week 3 was directly passed down to him, as a lot of the indigenous practices are, through his line. And so the tool that he used is a single terminated obsidian wand. And that's the centerpiece of your soul shift tools for August. So you're getting in your soul shift tools, I had them hand carved for you in Mexico. You're getting the exact tool that this Aztec priest, he referred to himself as a priest. You might call him a shaman. I don't know. He didn't refer to himself as a shaman. So, because he didn't refer to himself that way, I'm not going to refer to him as a shaman. So I don't like to put words in people's mouths. He saw himself as a descendant of a priest lineage. And so we're going to be doing that exact ceremony with the same tool. I do want to show you your tools for August really quickly, because that way when you get everything, I'm so excited. And a lot of you have said, I want more hands-on. You know what I mean? Like I want to learn a practice, a healing ceremony or tradition that I can then take and share with my family, my friends, my community. This is something you can absolutely take. And it relates to everything that I'm going to be teaching you tonight about the hands. So tonight is the mechanics of the hands for us. And then the third week will be the burning of the copal. In your kit, these are your tools. We worked really hard on this kit. I'm going to give credit not just to myself, but to all of Team SG. This is what's coming to you. So we had this grid plate custom made. I don't have one to show you, but it's a wood grid, and it has, and I'll teach you about the symbol in the middle. That's called the Mali Nali, and that is an image sacred to the Aztec god of medicine. And then around it are all different Aztec-inspired designs. Then you're getting, okay, so let me back up over here. This is your obsidian healing wand. This is a pure copal candle. This is my favorite candle we've ever had in Soul Shift. This is what's coming to you. This was poured in-house. The jar is so gorgeous. It's like textured brown and gold, and it's made with pure copal. Then you're getting 3 different kinds of copal in these jars. You're getting copal mixto, which is a mix. You're getting copal blanco, and I think copal, I can't remember what, I think it's copal negro, copal blanco, and copal mixto. So you're getting 3 different kinds of copal. You're going to get to choose then which ones you want to burn. And during week 3, I'll walk you through each one of them because I wanted you to experience all of the types of copal. Those are the 3 different types of resin that come to us from Mexico. And then you're getting your oils, and then this bowl over here, which I'm obsessed with. And then, of course, your adornment too, which is the healing symbol with obsidian. This is like the best Soul Shift kit ever. I don't have any more copal to sell it separately, but we can try, Annette. We kind of like everything we could get. It's hard to get copal right now, so we were only able to get enough for the set, but if we can get more, we certainly will bring it. The bowl is black. It's heat proof, so you can burn offerings and charcoal and everything in it. We had the bowls custom made for us, and then the outside of the bowl is all gold. I mean, it just looks like something that would have been in an indigenous ceremony. It's absolutely beautiful. Are you familiar with Temezcal? Temezcal in Nahuatl means a house of fire, and it is the Mexican sweat lodge or sweat ceremony. So Crystal, yeah, that's what I was just talking about. So you're going to take that bowl, you're going to put a charcoal disc inside, and you're going to place your copal resin on top of the charcoal disc with me, exactly as they do it even today in Temezcal ceremony. Before you're allowed to enter the sweat, the Mexican sweat, you have to burn the copal in the bowl. And then I'm going to do copal clearing for you, which forms a cross. So you do it from above the top of the head to the bottoms of the feet, and then you go from the left hand out to the right, and then the person turns around and you go from the top of the head down to the bottom of the feet, and then you go from the left to the right. It's going to be beautiful. So session 3, not to worry, you will have your tools. We will do the whole thing. We will have a traditional ceremony, not mezcal, Temezcal. It's a little bit different. But again, that is the Mexican sweat lodge. Some of you have been through it. It's an incredibly healing and purifying ceremony, and we're going to do our own version of it. Obviously, I can't give you a full sweat, but we're going to create some heat, and then we're going to do our clearing ceremony. Do you guys have any questions about any of that before? Did you really? Hillary said she did sweat ceremony in Arizona, and copal was burned before it. So it is too late to sign up for these tools, unfortunately, but I always let you know when the deadline is to sign up for the next month's tools. We have to have a deadline and cutoff because we only order for those who want the tools. That's how much we sort of agree to receive. So we estimate it based on the previous months. That's kind of how we do it. It's tough. No way. So Stephen used to fly to the Yucatan every year to use ceremony. So here's what you need to know. Can I break down Central and Southern American topography for you for a second? So here's you're gonna get a shitty picture, but this is the best I can do. Okay, and here's Florida. This is North America, right? This is the United States. And this is still North America, right? But we go down into Mexico, and then we go to the Yucatan Peninsula, and then we extend down into South America. So this is probably really hard to see. This is Mexico, right? This is the Yucatan Peninsula. Then here we get into Guatemala, Honduras, right? We start to go into South America down here, Guatemala, Honduras. So what you have to know is that the Aztecs were northern Mexico, all the way through into what we call La Ciudad, right, Mexico City. And so this was all Aztec area. From about the middle of Mexico down, so towards what we would consider southern Mexico today, out over the entire Yucatan Peninsula. This was Mayan, okay? So Aztec, Mayan, all the way through the Yucatan Peninsula, all the way down to the very top of Honduras. And so we are talking about the Aztecs this month. We're not really getting into the Mayan civilization. We're focusing on the Aztecs because it's a lot. And the ceremony that I was taken through was with an Aztec healer. I know Florida looks naughty because I'm not a good drawer, but you got what I was talking about. So any questions about Aztec versus Maya? It's really about the regionality and the topography. The Aztecs and the Maya shared a lot in common, right? And ultimately, then Cortez came and busted up the party. The end. That's Athena's Guide to Geology. Can you imagine if I was a geology professor? And then Cortez. The end. Which is really not funny at all. But you gotta laugh, otherwise you cry. Okay. Yeah, the Yucatan Peninsula is very happy to see you. I love the Yucatan Peninsula. There's big magic down there too, I have to say. Yeah, Rena said she wasn't paying attention. It's okay. So anyway, you get the upshot. We're focusing on the Aztecs, not the Maya, but both are Mesoamerican civilizations that are profound in terms of their healing practices and lineages. I sometimes hear people say, the Mayans and the Aztecs, and I'm like, no, like they're like saying that they were together, and I'm like, no, no, they weren't. So it's really important just on a fundamental level. Yeah, Cortez. But look, all countries have had invaders, explorers. This is just a universal theme, right? It just happens. Civilizations rise, and then people come in and they're like, I think I can do it better, or, oh, look, I discovered this place, now I own it. You know what I mean? Which has happened with Hawaii, it's happened with where we live today. It's really interesting. I used to teach at the University of San Diego, which sits on Kumeyaay Nation land. I won't distract you too much, but it's sort of an interesting corollary. And so I just got an email from some of my students who are actually, they are fighting, and I'm supporting them to have some Kumeyaay statues installed on the university grounds because the land was really taken from the Kumeyaay Nation. And it's some of the most beautiful land in San Diego, right, with big sweeping views. I could see the ocean from my office when I was a professor there. And so anyway, it's just, it's a constant theme with indigenous populations and then explorers coming in and discovering things, and then all of a sudden land is taken. So part of what I try to do when I'm teaching you is give you kind of an accurate history. The Mayans were roughly the same time, and the Inca were in Peru, right, at roughly the same time. The Inca civilization was 1400 to 1500. The Aztec civilization 1300 to 1521. 1521 is when Hernan Cortez arrived, and everything started to shift. And again, this isn't a history class, but I just like you to be in control of your facts so that we know kind of what we're talking about and we can differentiate, right? Okay, good. Yeah, so I mean, it's just, and it's never okay, right? When land is taken from anyone. But this is part of the story of Mexico and certainly the Aztec civilization too. Okay, so tonight what we're going to do is go through our worksheets. So I showed you your tools. Here are the other worksheets that you have. Oh, and the Inca civilization. I mean, if you really want to start to read fascinating stories, I could refer you to some books. There's some great books on Mesoamerican history. I mean, if this becomes kind of a rabbit hole that you want to go down, I highly recommend indulging it, especially if you live in the United States, because this is your history too. And I mean, I've spent a lot of time in Mexico. I know a lot of you have too. When I lived in San Diego, it was half an hour to go down and have dinner in Baja and come back. And it's just it's our next door neighbor for us in California, and yet a lot of people don't even know about the lineage of Mexico and the magic that lives there too. So it's important. Okay, so tonight your worksheets. You've got all my notes on there too. This is a Crystal Masters worksheet, but we're still going to talk about it a little bit tonight because we're talking about the planets tonight and the correspondences of your hands. I really want to teach you the power of your hands. We're going to be focusing on the right hand tonight because that's the dominant hand in palmistry. But good palmists, and I'm not an expert in palmistry, but I know enough to be dangerous, right? Good palmists will say that you have to look at both hands. Your right hand is your current state. This is everything that's gotten you to where you are today. But your left hand tells you about your past to some extent. And so we're not going to be focusing on the left hand just because we only have so many hours in our class time to do that. We're going to be focusing on the right hand. But again, if you want to go down the rabbit hole of palmistry, then you'll learn about the left hand too, and you can incorporate all of that into your practice. And so if you're interested in books on Mesoamerica, just let me know. I will post some recommendations in our Facebook group. Probably not this week, but I can post some recommendations for you next week. Okay. Is that helpful? Yeah, that's right. So Nicholas said, my aunt who's from Lima has Incan lineage. And so that's, the in Peru, and this is what I really want to reinforce to people. When you're in Peru, that's a different cosmology. That's a different, entirely different lineage. And so it's really important not to collapse or condense Mayan with Incan. Certainly the people I know in Peru would not want you to do that. It's quite different, yeah. And so it really doesn't matter whether you're left-handed or right-handed. It's more about the energy of those particular hands themselves than it is about your handedness, right? Do they sync up with our Dharma North Node, South Node? That I don't know, Tanya B., but I'd be curious to check it out. Very interesting, right? I like that. Okay, yeah, so I have some books on my bookshelf here at home because I've read a lot about Mesoamerica. It's always been an area of fascination for me, and so I'll certainly pass along the titles that I have read, and then I can also give you some recommendations from people I know who are interested as well. So for tonight, we're focusing on the right hand. Yeah? Yeah, so that's right. Thank you, Danielle. So the left is where you came in, and the right is where you are now. Destiny as it's unfolding in this moment. That's how I would describe it. I'm so glad you guys are excited about it. And again, tonight really isn't about palmistry. Tonight, because I'm taking it away from palmistry a little bit, I'm combining the Hamza tonight. I'm combining almost every lineage and what they think about the hands so that you open your mind. So this is not a class in palmistry. I'm going to be talking about palmistry basics, but that's not what tonight is. Tonight is, do you understand what your hands represent? Because when we have our wands, and I'll show you with this one because this is single terminated. This is Aztec practice. Imagine this is obsidian because this is the tool you're going to have when your tools come. This is what we do. And so you begin by clearing what can be cleared with the thumb and then calling in what can be received with the thumb. And then you place your tool on the mount, right? There's two different mounts, so I'll teach you more about this week 3. And then clearing what can be cleared with I'm doing it on the wrong hand. Clearing what can be cleared with the index finger and calling in what can be received through the index finger. Clearing what can be cleared with the middle finger and calling in what can be called in through the middle finger. Does that make sense? Clearing what can be cleared with the ring finger, calling in what can be called in with the ring finger, and then through the pinky and in through the pinky. Now the Aztecs started at the shoulders, and we'll do the whole ceremony, so I'm going to do a complete kapal smudging for you. We're going to start at the shoulder and work our way down, activating all of those energy lines, and then we will go finger to finger, releasing, calling in, releasing, calling in, releasing, calling in, releasing, calling in. If you don't have tools, the Aztecs did it with obsidian, and I'll teach you more about that when your tools arrive, why that was. If you don't have tools, then you're going to do it with the index finger of your left hand. And you can do it anywhere, anytime. And after tonight, my hope is that you will, it does matter, Tiffany, that's why I'm showing you. It has to be single terminated, and you're doing it with the rounded end. And we'll talk more about that. You can do it anytime, anywhere, sitting in your car. You don't need to do all the fingers. And after I teach you tonight, you'll be like, oh, sometimes I just need the pinky. Sometimes I just need to do this. Right? Sometimes you just need to release and you're not calling anything in. Sometimes you just need to call in. After tonight, I want you to know when, why, where, how, what. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? No, this is not a new wand coming in, unfortunately. There were 2 of these, and I sold one in a gem sale. So, do you remember who got it? I don't remember who got it, but I think it's somebody in our community got it. But you will be getting an obsidian wand. Sure, you can do it with your extraction needle. The traditional practice is with a longer wand, which is why that's what's coming in your tools. So that's what I gave you is exactly the tool. Literally what I am showing you or giving you in your tools is exactly what was used with me in ceremony. But if you want to use your extractor, yes, you can, if that's what you have. And it might be a nice way for you, especially again, if you're a healer who travels, it might be easier for you to travel with your extraction needle in the case than it is to travel with your bigger wand. So maybe you leave your wand, in your healing room or in your home or, your studio, whatever. So spheres will not work. It has to be a single terminated wand, one pointed end, one rounded. So I've offered 2 different things that will work for you, the tool that's coming in your kit and the extractor needle. Those are the 2 that will work for you. There is, I can't get into it this month, Crystal, for lack of time, but there is, of course, a lot of magic in your feet. So maybe next year, that's something that we could explore. Maybe we could do a 2.0 of this and explore your feet. The reason I chose hands, Crystal, is twofold. One is how I was raised. I was taught that healers heal with their hands, and I've always wanted to know more about it. And the second reason is the ceremony that I was taken through was life-changing, and I wanted to share it with you, and especially because I've never seen anybody else do it. There's no information about it anywhere, so I thought this was something really interesting to bring to you that's different, but certainly there's a lot of energy in your feet too. We have extractor needles on sagegoddess.com. And I think we have some single terminated wands too. So if you didn't get the tools, one of the things Alexis can do is kind of curate for you what we have available at Sage Goddess. I think we have rose quartz and some ocean jasper. And then some of you got the obsidian ones that we had too. So I can have Alexis look into that too. Anything single terminated will work, where it's a rounded end and a pointed end. So anything like that. And you can use another stone if you want. I'm using obsidian because this is Aztec work, and the Aztecs only used obsidian in these ceremonies. And the reason they only used obsidian is to Aztecs, obsidian was hardened fire. And to the Aztecs, fire was the only element you could use to clear energy. So everything tonight is, and everything this month is Aztec. It's not to say that other modalities don't work. It's not to say that other crystals don't work. But for the purposes of teaching you, I have to kind of limit things. I can't cover the, what they call boil the ocean. I can't give you the whole universe of possibility. But so this is the rationale for this month. But if you feel called to use a different stone and it's working for you, what I will always tell you is trust your intuition. It doesn't have to be Aztec for you if you don't want it to be. The Aztecs did not have some of the other stones, and so they wouldn't have incorporated them into their ceremonies, but it was also part of their cosmology too. Does that make sense? Okay, so now you know, and if you have no tools at all, I will always give you an out. If you have no tools at all, then you use your fingers. Does that make sense? That your fingers will always work as magical tools, for sure. Okay, cool. I'm glad that's helpful. So this month, tonight, we're going to talk about the August Angela Foe symbol. I'm going to teach you a little bit about the system too, because some people are new, and I want to make sure I describe to you what the Angela Foes are. Then we're going to talk about shadow work tonight. I'm very excited about it because this month, so we've been doing shadow work since the beginning of the year. One of the things I want to say to you is, I want to see you showing me that you're getting it. Sometimes in our work together, I don't see evidence that this is happening. And as a teacher, I want to tell you, this is really important. I normally save shadow work for like September, October, November. And I'm like, really listen to me when I'm telling you this. Like, actually just take a moment from commenting in the feed and just like be fully present to what I'm sharing with you right now, if you wouldn't mind. I normally teach shadow work September, October, November in what we call the shadow season. When we were planning 2020 programs last year, Alexis, Claire, a couple of us were together planning, and we all agreed, let's do shadow work a little bit earlier this year. Maybe we need to. Maybe we need to make it a year-long conversation instead of just two months or 3 months, okay? I think maybe we sensed something. I really do. I think at the end of last year, I knew something was coming. I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't name it. But I think I knew something was coming this year. I think I started to grieve this year, actually, toward the end of last year. And if I look back at some of the classes I taught and some of the things I was teaching, there was a little bit of a foretelling. And I'll tell you something. The last time I left Sage Goddess, I've only been back when no one is there. The last time I left Sage Goddess when the building was full was in March, on March 18th, I think, 17th. And that was the day that Momo was in the parking lot. And I absolutely knew I would never be back in that building with other people. Now, we were scheduled to move in September, so I think, but if you told me, like, hey, guess what, you're not going to be able to come back, because of your immune challenges before you move, I think I would have been surprised, actually. So here's what I want to tell you. This time that we are in is very important for spiritual growth. And shadow work, the reason I stopped saying shadow work, but I'm saying it tonight, is that I'm not sure everybody still fully understands what's going on. Shadow work is understanding your deeper subconscious profile. What drives you, what scares you, what makes you mad, what turns you on, right? What empowers you? What kills your power? What stops your power? What limits your power? Like all of that is inside your subconscious. And what's happening right now in a way that hasn't happened since I've been teaching, okay, is that not only are we having to understand our own personal subconscious, we're having to try to grapple with the collective subconscious and unconscious. So not only are you having to navigate your own fears, your own anxiety, your own challenges, your own what I call yuck and muck, okay? Because that's what's happening. You're also having to handle other people's fears, anxieties, yuck and muck. And then the bigger issue that's coming up right now isn't just even your subconscious, because you might kind of know what that's about. It's your unconscious. It's what you don't know that you don't know. It's your blind spot. And you have them. I have them. My goal in my life is to figure out what my blind spots are and look at them. That's my absolute goal. If you were to ask me, so what do you want to do for the next 10 years of your life? What's your goal? My goal by the time I'm 57, I'm turning 47 on Sunday. My goal by the time I'm 57 is to know what my blind spots are and look at them. But not everybody wants to do that, okay? Because it's not fun. It requires being honest with yourself. It requires looking at some parts of yourself that may need to change. It requires seeing your part in things, you know, because when we're not looking at our blind spots, what we're doing is oftentimes looking at other people's blind spots. So we'll look and say, well, she's really screwed up, and look at him, he's a mess, and oh my God, this other person. And then it's like, so where are you? I mean, if everybody else is a mess, sometimes it's important to stop and go, is it just that everybody else is a mess? And so right now, and here's the other thing, this is the bigger part I want to share with you tonight. That can be a way of avoiding your own work, because it's much easier to tell other people where they need to grow and improve than it is to look at yourself and say, you got to fix this. You need to address this. This isn't working. I'm lucky because I have people in my life who are pretty honest with me, you know, and will call me on stuff and say, I don't think that's great. Or, you know, I think you should really look at that. Or I wouldn't have done that the same way. Now you can look and say, well, that must be really hard. But I deliberately curate my life to have those people in my life because what I don't want to do is go down the road and then 10 years later have people say, well, I wanted to tell you, but I was too scared. Or I wanted to tell you, but I didn't think you were listening. Or I wanted to tell you, but blah, 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 right? So it's important to have people in your life who are going to say, that's not working. That's not working. And they can do it with love, right? Like, my commitment to you, and especially from this point forward toward the end of the year, because in December, I want you to, I think about the end of the year, okay, a lot. December 31st, when you're all getting your certificates as priestesses and all the stuff, and you're so excited and everything. I want you, at the end of the year, to feel like you were challenged. We don't grow when we're not challenged. I don't grow when I'm not challenged. Doesn't need to mean you need to be challenged all the time. And it doesn't mean that everybody's opinion carries the same weight. I only take that feedback into consideration when the person knows me really well. If they don't know me, then, you know, okay. But I feel as your teacher that I'm able to give you feedback, and my hope is that you'll be able to receive it And at the end of the year, I want you to feel really proud of the growth, the stretch, the development that you've seen over the course of the year. And part of that's going to come from you looking and then expressing. Now, I want to talk tonight about what expressing your shadow looks like. Expressing your shadow does not mean that you get to just shadow all over people. Expressing your shadow doesn't mean that you get to feel angry and then be angry with people. It doesn't mean you get to feel resentful and then express just pure resentment. It doesn't mean that you get to feel passionate and then just express your passion. It's not just a pass through. This is about becoming aware of your shadow, what those subconscious influences, motivations, drivers are for you, and yours are going to be different than mine, right? And then you have to figure out how you're going to express your acknowledgement. And for me, part of that process is being honest, but also being able to analyze and not just regurgitate, right? So people could say, well, I am expressing my shadow. I'm pissed off, and so I'm yelling at every person that I see. I would say, that's not really an expression of your shadow. That's not a conscious expression. That's a subconscious expression. When you're angry and all you do is yell at your kids, I have friends like this. I have acquaintances like this, who are mad people, and they just yell at their kids all the time. Just all the time. Is that an expression of shadow? It is. Is it a conscious expression of shadow? It is not. Those people cannot see that they are harboring this deep anger inside, and that every time they talk to their kids, it comes out. Their kids should not be on the receiving end of anger about what happened to them when they were little, right? That's not conscious. That's unconscious. That's projection. So I want to make sure, do you guys understand the difference between expression and projection? Because projection is just shadowing all over people. I'm pissed, so I'm pissed at you. I'm resentful, so I'm resentful of you. I'm sad, so I'm sad about you. And it's like, no, that's projection, that's not expression. Does that make sense? At least this is how I understand it. Expression is, I see what's going on with me. I see it. I see what my anger is about. And so I acknowledge that I'm using this as an example. I'm not really an angry person. My shadow shows up other places. I'm not angry, but I get resentful. So let's use resentment. I'm resentful sometimes. I just am. And so it's easy for me to just get resentful of other people and other situations that remind me of the situations that made me resentful in the first place. But an expression of shadow is the interpretation of it, the analysis of it, the presencing to it. Like, this is where I'm struggling, guys. Can you witness me? Can you see me? I'm doing my best. I'm working on it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be aware. It makes me want to cry because I'm honestly doing this work right now. It's constant work. When people tell me they're too advanced for this, they've already done it. I had one person say, you know what, I don't really need this. I did the of light and shadow class and I'm all good. And my response was, what? Like, I taught the of light and shadow class and I'm not all good. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe if their entire process got completely resolved 3 years ago or whatever, okay, but I have new shadow stuff that emerges every month. Like, it's an iterative, like, cycle, do you know? And then it's new stuff. It's like, well, where did that come from? So it's a constant, like, pulling it up, analyzing it, and then trying to express it. Pulling it up, analyzing it, and then trying to express it. Pulling it up, analyzing it, and then trying to express it. And I've never been done with shadow work. And I started shadow work when I was in my early 20s. I'm not done. So first of all, in my opinion, if you want to know where I sit with this, you're never done. It's an ongoing process. If you think you're done, that definitely tells me you're not done. That tells me you're extra not done, right? And because you're human and you live on a planet, something is going to come up for you. And you're in a pandemic. We're going through an election year in the United States. And it's about to get harder before it gets easier, is my intuition. So I really want to encourage you. I'm just kind of laying it out on the line. Candace said, if you see what you're doing and know it's not okay, it's not shadow anymore. Is that correct? That's right. You know that you've managed a shadow when it doesn't threaten you anymore. When you're not trying to hide it or pretend like it doesn't exist, or like, who, me? I'm not that, you know? When you see it come up and you're like, oh yeah, I know what that is. I'm not going to get mad about it. I'm not going to, I'm going to acknowledge it, but I'm not going to play that game this time. That's how you know you've started to manage that part of your shadow. Does that make sense? It is going to get harder before it gets easier, my friends, which is why I'm going to push on the gas pedal a little bit, because what I don't want to see us do is go through the harder part of this year, the more challenging part of this year, let's say, potentially, and not be aware of what's happening. Here's another way that you'll know when you're kind of getting into this territory, if you want to know kind of my cues about it. When my focus gets really small, myopic, like, I don't know, something that one person is doing, or one issue, or one, program I saw on TV, or when my focus gets really small, that's how I always know I'm getting close to shadow stuff. Because it's like something's pulling me in, and it's like, then it's all I can think about. It's all I want to talk about. If it's a post on Facebook, I keep going back and looking at it again. You know what I mean? Like when you get real small, that's not your soul. That's your shadow. Your shadow gets real small. And then your shadow starts going, see, you know what I mean? See, that's exactly blah, blah, blah. When you start getting really small, that is a huge cue to you to pull out. I mean, I don't have a better, more G-rated metaphor. That is when you gotta yank and go, I'm going from micro to macro. Your soul is big. If you think about it, this universe is so big. If you're focused on one tiny thing, that's shadow, right? It's icky. And then you keep going back. You keep thinking about it. You keep rolling it around. You keep going, yeah. It's like, right? Small is shadow, big, and small is ego, and big is soul. Your soul wants you to think big. Your soul wants you to think about past, present, and future. Your soul wants you to think about not just problem, but solutions, right? And reorientation. When you're, and you know when it's happening. I mean, I want you to hear me in your head the next time you're like, but this person and she, even with my kids, like, but she did it first. And, she posted on TikTok, and then I went in and I posted my own TikTok, and then she responded to my TikTok. And I'm just like, even as kids, they're starting to get it. When you're in that place, you got to pull out. Off TikTok. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a silly example. Well, Roxanne, here it is, right? And thank you, girl, for asking. She said, how do you pull out if you're stuck in the muck? Become aware. Become conscious. Start coaching yourself. Eventually, I'm really being serious about this. Eventually, my kids, will grow up and become adults, and I won't be in their ear all the time. Eventually, I won't be teaching you, right? Like, become conscious. Start to notice your own patterns. Get to know who you are. Start to learn when you're edging toward it before you fall into it, right? Start to notice your patterns. What are your patterns? And if you don't know, ask people close to you. They'll tell you. I have a couple people in my life, like I said, who I can ask and say, is this a pattern? And they'll say, you know what, it is. Is this making sense? The reason I'm bringing all of this up and spending the first part of our class on this tonight is, candidly, the last time I taught through a moment like this in history, I was a professor on 9/11, okay, which I know feels like a really long time ago, and it is. It's almost 20 years ago, right? When I was a professor, that was when I was a professor at the University of Southern California, and I had to teach the morning of 9/11. And I remember walking into my classroom, and I was teaching English as a second language. That was one of the hardest teaching days ever. And half of my class, the cohort, it was an Islamic cohort. These were kids from Muslim countries. And I have some working knowledge of Arabic, so a lot of them got put into my class. And I remember walking in and being afraid myself, right? Because they were all telling us that LA could be next, and I was in downtown Los Angeles, and so it was like a very stressful. And I remember walking into my class and looking around the room, and here are all my students, right? And I mean, they're away from their families, and right, and people were talking about the attackers and all these things, and I looked around the room, and I literally made eye contact with each one of my students, and I said, I love you. That's probably not what most of your professors would say to you, but I love you. And what's happening in the space, and tell you that I love you and everything will be okay, and I support you, and we're going to get through this together. And it was like a big exhale in the room. You could feel it, and we did. We got through the semester together. It was an extraordinary experience. And Teresa had clients that day, right? I'll never forget. And I'm still friends on Facebook with about half of those students who've gone on to be wildly successful, right? And they all remember that day too. One of them said, I remember you looking at me and saying you loved me. And I thought, at the same time, I was like, that's weird. And I'm so glad she said that. They were so comforted, right? I couldn't stop the curriculum to talk about what was going on in the world because I was being paid to do something, and people had graduation requirements, and I mean, we just had to keep rolling, you know what I mean? We just had to otherwise we were going to melt down, and we weren't going to finish our work. Tonight, what I want to say to you is I can stop the curriculum for an hour and talk about what's going on in the world. And what I'm going to say is I see it coming up for some of you in some subconscious ways, some unconscious ways. And I want you to become aware of it. And I don't want you to just become aware of it because you're in a class called Soul Shift and that's the curriculum, because guess what? That's the curriculum. This month, for the next hour, what we're going to talk about is what it means to stand in your power as a healer. A priestess is not necessarily a healer. It is a choice that you make. And what I want to say to you tonight is if you want to be a priestess, if you want to be a healer, if that's why you came here, if that's why you join these classes, then it's time to become a priestess and a healer. And that means you cannot go through this life anymore playing out the subconscious and the unconscious. You have to start becoming aware. And I will do my best to mirror back to you and remind you, but there has to be an openness on your side to also see it and step into it and show up to that call, because it is the call. When I go out into the world, I'm aware of this, right? And it doesn't mean that things don't bother me, and it doesn't mean that, and I mean, I've had my moments too where I didn't perform the way I should have, where things got the better of me and I said the wrong thing or I did the wrong thing. I mean, it happens all the time. You've seen it, you'll see it again. It's not like I'm never going to make a mistake or act from my subconscious or my unconscious. Like, of course I will. I'm still human, right? But I am consciously trying to get better, do better, know better, behave in more alignment with my goal, which is my goal is to be a priestess and a healer on this planet at this time. And that requires me to start owning my stuff. If you don't know what your stuff is, your homework, are you ready, Lena? Your homework is to figure out what your stuff is. Can you take 30 seconds and can you write down somewhere, I don't care where it is. You can put it in the feed, you can just say it in your head, you can write it down in your notes. What your 3 issues are that you have to work on. I mean, you must know them, right? What are your 3 issues that you have to work on? Now, sometimes I have unrealistic expectations of people. But I think it's also because I'm a teacher and I want to push you past where you think you can go. I mean, I don't want you to settle for like, I got it done. I did it. I didn't do a great job, but I did good enough. I want you to look back on this year and go, I rose to that occasion. And here's how it's showing up in my life in a new way. So anger, patience, resentment, abandonment, right? Worthiness. For a lot of you, there's worthiness issues. For a lot of you, there is. And it's not about me or our class or anything. It's about, it came from somewhere else. And so now it's coming up for healing. Are you going to heal it? The first step is to acknowledge it. The second step is to do something about it, right? Or it becomes a cycle. Expecting people to act like me, said Katie, right? Fear of abandonment, right? Abandonment's big. You know, Dave to some extent brought that into our marriage because he had a lifelong fear of being abandoned because people kind of didn't show up for him. And for a while, he was bringing that into our relationship in the early years. And I remember saying, if you're going to be afraid I'm leaving all the time, then this isn't going to work. So you're either going to acknowledge that and stop acting from that place, and I'll do my best to meet you halfway and like not trigger that stuff, but we're going to have to work together or this isn't going to work. And that kind of like what they call a come to Jesus, right? Like, no, we're going to have to get better at this. I don't want to keep having this conversation. And you find yourself saying things like, yes, you're worthy. No, I'm not leaving. Yes, you're seen. No, you're not a bad person. Like when you find yourself cyclically having to say something to someone, that's how you know it's like, it's not getting in, right? It has to get in. And it's now or never, because what can happen is you can say, well, this is too hard. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not ready for this. I don't want to work on my stuff. And then a year from now, it'll come up somewhere else because the universe is like that. And you'll be like, I should have just done the work then. Right? Because if this is your issue now, it's going to be your issue. A year from now, it's going to be your issue. It's probably coming up in other parts of your life too, right? And my stuff too, right? My whole thing is, do you really love me? Do you really love me? But do you really love me? But do you really love me? Because I didn't feel loved. And eventually he was like, I love you. And if you're going to spend the rest of our relationship asking if I really love you, this isn't going to work. And so I finally had to just go, he loves me. And it doesn't matter how many other people didn't, he does. And so I'm actually going to end up pushing him away if I don't stop this. Am I making sense to you? I mean, I'm really giving you like examples from my own life so that you get this. Because I had to stop going through my life going, but do you love me? But do you love me? Which comes across as like desperate and codependent. Do you know what I mean? But do you love me? Yeah. So Nitu, and I have that in common. So let's take a breath there. Where's my lighter? Shit. Do I really not have a lighter? I've got matches. Oh, no, I do. At some point. At some point. Now, this doesn't mean you're not going to get mad or angry or frustrated. Oh, I just filled this with butane. There we go. It does not mean you're not going to get mad. It does not mean you're not going to get frustrated. It does not mean those things. It's not the what, it's the how. Shadow, it comes out like a dagger. When it's conscious to you, it comes out, it's expressed differently. You know what I mean? I appreciate you guys, but this is really real. And honestly, him bringing me to that awareness helped me stop behaving that way in my relationships, because I was just needy and it wasn't serving me at all. Right? I love that. Nicholas says, manifesting happiness, feeling worthy of achieving my goals, feeling as though my love and light are adequate. But this is the big thing. Like, yes, you're enough. Yes, you're loved. Yes, you know what I mean? And but it needs to come from you. It needs to come from you. Yes, you're worthy. Yes, you're loved. Yes, you're good enough. Yes, your skills. Yes, your gifts, right? Do you guys know that? Can you tell the difference between a shadow expression and a conscious expression? Can you guys sense it in people when it's coming from a subconscious place versus a conscious, aware place? Can you kind of sense the difference? Okay, good. Can I touch on integrating the shadow? So, as we move through this year, the goal ultimately, right, is to be able to hold that place in yourself. That little girl in me, you know, who used to I remember driving around different neighborhoods, and I remember, I've told you this before, looking in other people's houses, you know, people leave their lights on. I remember driving through different neighborhoods and looking at people's houses and thinking, I wonder what it's like in that house. You know what I mean? I wonder what that family's like. I wonder if those kids feel accepted. It's really sad, right? She's still in here, but I can hold her now. I can talk to her. I know when I'm starting to operate from her, and I can check it, because I'm the boss, right? If you don't integrate the shadow, it can become the boss. It can emerge. It can take over the show, right? So I can talk to her and say, I hear you, I see you, right? You are loved, but we're not gonna run this show from a place of insecurity anymore. We have what we need, right? So integration for me is being able to hold it all in the cauldron, right? It's all in there. That little girl's in there. The angry part of me is in there. The resentful part of me is in there. The, hypersexual part of me is in there. All of the parts of me that are in that shadow soup are in there. And I'm not saying, oh, this is bad, or this is ugly, or you got to get out of here, or whatever. I'm saying you're all there. This is part of who I am. But none of you are running the show. You're not in charge. I'm in charge, and whatever you want to call it, higher consciousness or integrated self or whatever, I'm in charge. I recognize that that's in there, but that's not the only thing that's in there. And I can see it for what it's worth. I know when it starts to talk. I know when it starts to operate, and I can sort of I can navigate it, right? What does little you need? What does big you need, right? But here's the thing. At some point, you got to take charge of this. I can't do it for you. Nobody here in Soul Shift can do it for you. Your partner can't do it for you. You can't do it for your partner. You can't do it for anybody else who's here. We are in a group together, but this is an individual decision. But it starts to become obvious, is what I'm saying to you. And at a certain point, when you're in a class where this is what we're doing, I want you to show me that this is work that you're doing. I'd like evidence. And I see it in a lot of cases, and candidly, I don't see it in some cases. And I want to see more of it. I'm totally okay with people grappling with their shadow, but I'm not okay with unconscious expression of it and then wanting, sympathy or empathy or whatever, because that's codependence. When people are like, oh, I understand, and me too, and this and that, and we're all in the, it's like, no. Let this person have their experience. They're working through it. You can witness them, but let's not create codependency, right? They don't need you to fix this. They're working through this. They need you to witness them. but also say, I'm proud of you for struggling with this a little bit, because ultimately it's going to mean you learn how to hold it in a different way. So it doesn't run you, you run it. You know, that 10-year-old little girl isn't running the show, you're running the show. And that 10-year-old little girl knows you accept her, but she's not in charge. Does that make sense? So what does this look like? It's a great question. So it is as simple and as difficult as you starting to become aware. That's why I'm asking you the question tonight. What are your 3 things? And are you aware that those are your 3 things? Right? I'm going back through the feed just to see some of your comments as we come through this, because it's a lot that I'm sitting with you tonight. But it's time, because, you know, we are now more than halfway through this year. And if we're going to really do this work, we got to turn up the heat just a little bit. And candidly, I had 2 choices at this point in the year. I thought, you know what, we're in a pandemic. Maybe I just forget the curriculum. You know what I mean? Maybe we can't do the curriculum this year. Maybe it's too much. Maybe this isn't the right time. Maybe people don't have an appetite to do the work. I mean, I'm just telling you my honest thoughts. I really went through this the last 2 weeks. And then part of me is like, but you came here for this. So if I just decide, forget the curriculum, let's just do something else, I think that's a disservice, right? But I really had this moment, is it too much right now? Can people not handle this, right? Yeah, well, I mean, obviously I decided that we're going to do it. But I had a moment where I'm like, I don't know if this is the right time. So what I did is I asked myself, let's fast forward to December. Will they feel more complete because we did it? Or will they feel more complete because we didn't do it? And the answer was more complete because we did it. I do want you to know, I mean, if you ever decide it's too much and you can't handle it, I would never judge you. You know what I mean? If this isn't the right place, the right time, the right whatever, that's ultimately a decision that you have to make. I've decided to persist with the curriculum. But it does require that we practice what we're learning. Yeah? Because each one of you goes out in the world and you touch a lot of lives. And those people touch other people, and those people touch other people. And so if you think about it, the ring of influence of Soul Shift is on the order of tens of thousands of human beings on this planet. So not only would that be kind of a cop-out for us, but it would limit the wingspan, of our collective in a certain way, right? So a couple things I want you to know. I'm doing it too. So you're not alone. And I'm candid about my challenges, and you see me struggle sometimes, and maybe that's good, right? B, I see you. I see you when you're doing it, and I see you when you're not. And I'm going to start being just a little more focal when you're not, because I need to be. I'm going to be, my Libra rising self. I'm usually quite diplomatic, but I still will be like, excuse me. Hashtag got grit. And C, I'm going to try my best in the next couple of months to give you some great tools to work with, so that as you navigate these challenges, you have something other than just your grit to rely on, right? You've got some tools at your fingertips that you can employ. I'm so glad. Thank you for that, Laurel Winkle, by the way. Yeah, I'm your elf on the shelf. Oh, it's so creepy. It's so creepy. I don't really want to be your elf on the shelf. I'm not really in your house watching you. Because those are creepy. It's really sad about what happened to the elf on the shelf. Did you hear? They're not able to work this year because of the pandemic. That's what I told my kid. Yeah. Look at that, Larissa. Yeah, I mean, a lot of you have examples. No, I'm not going to kick your butt, but what I might do, like, if this is your butt, I might, like, I might push your butt. I'm not going to swat you, but I might push your butt just a little bit. Okay. Any questions before we sort of shift gears a little bit? Don't put that song in my head, Tanya. Don't you do it. I get songs in my head and then they live there for a week. Don't you do it. They are creepy. The good news is this is work you can do. This is work you can do. And you can get like 95% better at this to where it almost doesn't ride up on you anymore. And those are the people I really admire in my life because it doesn't ride up on them anymore. This stuff happens. It's not tectonic, you know what I mean? Whereas like us, we get rocked by things. You know, those folks, it's like a little like, but they're not like completely swayed by people, place, circumstance, right? I don't know about a place to post in the group regarding this. Alexis and I will talk about it if we need a new hashtag or something. The hashtags get a little overwhelming, right? All right, so let's dive in. I'm really glad you guys are here. I really am. Okay, your Angela Post symbol for August is the healer symbol. This is one of the only symbols we can't draw in one continuous line. You have to draw with two. Even when she showed it to me in ayahuasca, she drew it with 2 lines. So if you can find a way to draw it with one, I would really love to see what you do. In my experience working with it. Thank you for that, Vanya. Because part of me is like, is this even interesting to you guys? Like, does this even make sense? But at the same time, I literally, before we started class, I was sitting in here and I prayed. And I just said, Great Spirit, guide my words. You know? Because there's moments where I'm like, I know what I'm getting at, but I don't always know kind of like I say, it's always the what and the how, right? So I wanted to be able to like pull that car into the driveway at the right angle. You know what I mean? So hopefully I made sense. I think Alexis is here. Are you here, Alexis? She usually is. Maybe she's quiet tonight. Little ginger ale break. Okay. Good. So this is the healer symbol. And what it represents are a couple different things. This is the human body, and then this is your astral connection, the way I understood the symbol from my journey. So the way I draw it is, I start at the top left, around. It's kind of a sexy symbol to draw. Around again, it's like an infinity symbol, up, and then boom, down the middle. And what I was shown in my journey with this symbol is that this is the duality. Left, right, you know, masculine, feminine, all of that, the duality. This line represents the duality. So we live in a triplicate universe, right? There's 3 worlds: the lower world, the middle world, the upper world. You know, there's the human form, right? But then there's this astral channel that connects us, and ultimately the line that delineates our duality. And so this is the symbol. If there was one symbol I probably would have as a permanent tattoo, I think it's this one. And I loved that the way they came to me, this lined up with the month of my birthday because I just thought that's kind of cool. I may end up actually having this one tattooed. I'm trying to figure out a tattoo that would be like a sigil of all of the Angela Fos symbols. I'm working on that right now. It does look like DNA, doesn't it? There's a little bit of that double helix action going on. It's a very astute observation. And I think that is part of the energy. I really, really do. So do you need me to do it one more time? Yeah, Scout, you and me both. I'm telling you, this is the one I really feel the deepest connection to. So again, I start at the top left. It looks like you're right. And you can start either side. And then around, think figure eight, think infinity, right? Back up, almost like a horn, right? And then that line comes right through the middle. It is an 8. Why don't lower world people ever come up here? What do you mean? I feel like we talk about the lower world a lot. Lower world is the bone kingdom, the mineral kingdom, and the planetary matrix. So I think of the lower world as all of the ancestors, including you as ancestor, because you've had past lives. There are bones buried all over this planet that were yours, right? So I think of the lower world as being those bone people, and then the mineral kingdom, right? All of the crystals in the center, toward the center of the planet, and then you have the planetary matrix itself, which are all the ley lines across the planet. To me, are also lower world energies. Oh yeah, you can totally. Are you kidding? These symbols are yours. I think it was Marlon, right, in our group who already had it tattooed. One of them tattooed on her. It's so cool. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Get it. Do it. Are you? Yeah. I'm either going to do them down. So I have flash tattoos that are coming for you guys of the Angela Fos if you want them. And I did have them do one line down so it can be down the arm. But I think I'm going to do them in a circle. I'm just trying to figure out what it's going to look like. But I'll be having them tattooed too. I love it. We'll have to compare our tattoos. I will love that one day. Yeah, your bones are in the ground, girls and boys and all. Your bones are in the ground somewhere. Okay, so I want you to, now that we talked about the symbol, and we talked about our tools, and we talked about our next iteration of the acknowledgement process. So this month we're going to express our shadow, but we're not going to project our shadow. Here's what I'm going to say, and to kind of finish that part of the conversation. It is totally acceptable to do the following in our Facebook group. Ready? It is totally acceptable in our Facebook group to post and say, I am struggling with this part of myself. This is coming up for me. X, Y, and Z triggered me. All of that stuff. When I see posts like that, I get very excited as a teacher because that is expression. That is somebody trying to understand their process and looking to our collective maybe to say, oh, that's interesting. Have you thought of this? Or have you read this book? Or I've got this other way of thinking about this, right? What is not okay is just coming in and getting angry. That's a projection. That's not an assessment. That's not saying, I'm struggling with this. That's saying, blah, okay? That is not okay. And I have a policy in general of not taking posts down in our Facebook groups, and I don't like to do it at all, honestly. In the public groups, I take stuff down every 10 minutes because those are not tight containers and people post stuff that's completely off the mark. I will say, if I see projections, I am going to remove them. I don't want to create a container to hold that. That's not our purpose for being here, and it shows me as a teacher that there isn't learning happening. So I'm going to draw a harder line with expression versus projection. And we'll be holding that line really solidly through the rest of the year because it's not okay. You doing your work though, all day long. And you can say, Athena, I don't know. I'm still struggling. I can't figure this out. That's okay. I need more help. I need more perspective. I need more guidance. Okay. All day long. I mean, all the way through the rest of the year. I will never lose my patience with you. But that is not going to work for me. That's not doing work. You know what I mean? That's not, I don't know what that is. Okay, so let's turn to our, tonight's all about the worksheets, by the way. So this is what we're doing because we don't have our tools. So I'm going to be going through my notes And I'm going to be going through your worksheets for the next half hour or so. Okay, good. Thank you for seeing me too. It's challenging, guys. And I'm saying all this to you now because when it gets harder, and again, I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. But if it becomes more challenging over the next couple of months, it will get harder and harder not to do the projection because it'll just be a, you know? And so that's why we have to do this work now so that we're prepared, because when additional stress comes, it pushes us back to a place of subconscious and unconscious. Yeah. Well, again, people can post all their stuff, what they're struggling with. Please see me, please witness me, all that stuff. I'm here for that. But I'm not here for, oh, and P.S., I'm not going to take any personal responsibility or learn anything. It's like, I'm not here for that. Okay, so these are the worksheets, hands and healing across the world throughout time. Like I said, we're starting tonight, and then we're going to pick up with Crystal Masters next week. We're going to be talking about using your hands as a grid, which will be really fun. So hand gridding, and then we're going to be talking in more depth about the. We're going to start the planetary correspondences tonight. We'll go in more depth even than tonight next week with Crystal Masters. And then Crystal Masters this month, the tools are that whole set of palm stones is coming. So then I'm going to be teaching you about the metaphysical properties of those stones too. That's right. It's true. And then you'll be in a much better place to help priestess others, because ultimately, like I said, I'm not just concerned about you. I'm concerned about your spheres of influence and all the people that you go out in the world and help. Will really appreciate you coming from a place of higher consciousness and awareness. Doesn't mean you're not going to screw up and make mistakes, because you will. I make them all the time. So as your worksheets say, I won't read it to you, but hands have been used across the world and throughout time to heal, right? Hands-on healing, palmistry, reflexology, acupuncture, Reiki, right? The symbols. And then the Hamsa symbol, which we see in Islamic traditions, we see them in Judeo-Christian traditions, right? The Hamza means five in Arabic, so that's the 5 blessings of the hand. And then the study of the palm is palmistry, also known as chirology or simple palm reading. It's one of the oldest and universal divination arts. We believe that palmistry originated in India, and ultimately then became very popular throughout ancient Greece and Rome. There were lots of palmists in ancient Greece and Rome, 1000%. We know that Alexander the Great had a private palmist that he worked with, right? Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I love that. Dr. Chris said, bulldozing the shadow does not work either. We need to be careful. We are all sensitive to what's going on in the world. We usually regress a lot more becoming aware, so it's okay. That's true. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's like baby steps through this process too. And being gentle with yourself, because you are going to make mistakes along the way, and we're here for that. So thank you for that too. Okay. Now, the Hamza symbol, the image of the open hand, which I have a big one. If I could pull back that curtain right now, there's a big Hamza on the wall right behind that curtain where I keep my drums and stuff. It's a very protective symbol. It's a sign of healing too. And it brings healing blessings, which is why you see it hung in homes, right? So I've got it here. We have Hamzas in the office of Sage Goddess, right? So you've seen Hamzas throughout our practice too at Sage Goddess. And so in different traditions, Chinese, Indian, which is Vedic and Western, Indian palmistry associate the fingers with the planets. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Western palmistry is a more simplified version. It's less predictive, more holistic, and focuses on psychological qualities. There are also correspondences of each one of the fingers to different parts of the body for healing. So again, all of this can be incorporated into the ceremony that I'm going to teach you during week 3. It's interesting, isn't it? Okay, let's see. So let's turn to, I want you to look at this image in your notes. And Alexis will be taking notes for you, but if there's anything as I go through that you want to write down, you are welcome to take your own notes as well, if that's helpful. You have Hamzas too? I like that too. I love reading your comments. Well, Melissa said, I'm almost too scared to even post in the group. Don't be scared to post in the group. I mean, I have to tell you, I think that that's also part of the work, right? Don't hide, don't numb out, don't be afraid to post, don't be afraid to show up. Now, I'll say there's plenty of people in Soul Shift who are not in Facebook and don't join the Facebook groups, don't participate in Facebook. There's a lot of people. One of the reasons I mention, like I'm going to mention the Soul Shift Bebops tonight, because a lot of my clients are not on Facebook. They never see my lives. They have no idea, of anything. So if you prefer that, you can always do that. But I actually think the Facebook group is a great arena to practice in. And I want you to feel comfortable posting and sharing, because it's part of the work that we're doing, right? Okay, so this is the hand. Now I want to talk about each one of the fingers tonight, and I'll cover a little bit of this in Crystal Masters, but not as in depth. With you guys, it's always a double click. I'm taking it one step down. So this is going to be more, maybe a little bit more of a complex, more nuanced discussion of the hands than I'll be doing next week. Crystal Masters is a little bit more at the surface level, but it's also, for some people, it's more of an introductory class. And those of you who are in both, you kind of get both, you know what I mean? So that's helpful too. The deeper dive, and then the lighter frosting too. So I want to start with your thumb. So your thumb is associated with the element of fire. Your forefinger, your ring finger, is the element of air. So each one of these has a correspondence. And so one of the reasons in the Aztec tradition that they start the healing ceremony at the thumb is because that's the fire finger. And it was true, it's been true in almost every cosmology, these elemental correspondences of the hands. And what's interesting is, no matter where you learn, I learned these elemental correspondences of the hand and fingers when I was going through Wiccan training, when I was in my late teens and early 20s. You know what I mean? So it's like, this is stuff that, it's interesting how it comes up in almost every pantheon, and it's consistent across all of them. You will sometimes see people say different elements for the fingers, but by and large, these are pretty consistent. So your thumb is your fire element, your index finger is air, your middle finger is spirit, your ring finger is earth, and your pinky finger is water. So again, what I'm going to be teaching you and reminding you during week 3 is, maybe you just need to bring in fire element energy. Right? Because how do you balance earth, right? You're too grounded, you got to bring in fire. So you would just simply sit and draw that energy in, and you could draw it all the way up through your body. You can take that line all the way through. This feels really good because this one has a ball that rolls. It'll just fall out. I gotta be gentle with it, but it's meant to swivel around. So you can bring that energy all the way through. So from the tip of your thumb all the way through and up your arm. So practice with that, right? It's the pentagram. Okay, now and we're gonna go one by one through your worksheets with this. So if you look at page 3, let's start with the Jupiter finger, which is your ring finger, your index finger. Not your ring finger, your index finger. This is confidence, leadership, growth, progress, spirituality, and potential. That's what you can call in with the ring finger. And again, this is the element of air. So this is like possibility, expansive perspective. If you think about what Jupiter represents, it's good luck, good fortune, serendipity, right? This is all the ring finger. So again, you can, who's with me tonight? Losing everything that's right in front of me. If you need to bring those energies in, and then you can bring it all the way up, right? Now, what you release, each finger has what it pulls towards you and what you can release through it. So just like you can pull all of those qualities towards you through the ring finger, you can release fear. The Jupiter finger is where you release fear. The thumb is where you release grief. Does that make sense? So thumb releases grief, and the thumb allows you, because it's the fire finger, to call in passion, willpower, and courage. So releasing worry and grief, calling in courage and willpower. On the ring finger, releasing fear, calling in possibility, expansion, leadership. Yeah? That's really interesting. Michelle said her index finger itches all the time. So it could just, it's an energetic signal to you, but what it means, so now that you have some of these correspondences for the fingers, I said ring, but I meant index. We're talking about the thumb and the index finger right now. So again, releasing grief and worry, calling in passion, willpower, and courage, releasing fear, calling in leadership, luck, serendipity, all of those things with the forefinger, the index finger. Okay? And you want to think about your jewelry too. So this is where I want you to become more conscious of the jewelry that you wear. So it was a conscious choice to wear my Moldavite and have it and buy it in the size for my Jupiter finger. Because Moldavite's a great stone for the Jupiter finger, right? It's about calling in all of those energies from multiple dimensions. And if you think about it too, this ring prevents me, wearing Moldavite prevents me from thinking too small. That's how I avoid getting into those little like pockets in my mind where I'm like stuck on one person or one thing or one issue. Like Moldavite keeps me interdimensional. It keeps me from falling into those traps. All right, kinetic karma, let me know how you're confused. I want to help you, but I'm not sure where you're confused. So if you can articulate more of it, I would love to be able to untangle a knot for you. So releasing worry, grief, calling in passion and will, releasing fear, and then because it's the Jupiter finger, that allows you to call in all of the qualities of Jupiter. Again, confidence, growth, progress, spirituality, right? So then you choose jewelry accordingly, and you can go on a quest, right, to connect with that. Now, one person last night, it was really interesting, was saying that they're going to wear their fire opal ring that they got in the gem sale as a thumb ring, and I thought, that's actually really smart because it's a fire stone. Or an obsidian ring would be a great thumb ring. Larimar, ironically enough, because it's a water stone, is probably going to be best on your pinky as a pinky ring. Although you could balance it too. Can you guys let me know where you're confused? I hear you, I see you saying it, but I just want to make sure I know where you're stuck so I can clarify what I'm talking about. So each this is where we are right now in your notes, and each one of your fingers has these correspondences. So what I'm doing is walking you through the worksheet to talk to you about each one of those correspondences. And then when you move the wand out, you release what you can release with that finger, and when you move the wand in, you call in the energies of that finger. Because each finger has energies you can release, and each finger has energies that you can call in. Does that help a little bit in terms of explaining? I don't know that there's a right or a wrong stone. One thing you may want to look at if you want to get really technical about stones and fingers, you may want to look at Vedic astrology. Vedic astrology does dictate a little bit which stones are okay to wear on which fingers. I don't adhere to Vedic astrology, but some people really do. And so if you're wearing, I think sapphire is middle finger. Does anybody know in Vedic astrology? But anyway, if a Vedic astrologer sees you with a sapphire ring on the wrong finger with the wrong birth chart, they will be like, you can't do that. Here's the thing. It's a great question. Where I am collapsing for you, and so I'm glad you asked, Lynette. What I'm showing you tonight, I'm collapsing for you. So this isn't just palmistry tonight. I'm overlaying on top of the basic correspondences, also the elemental correspondences, the chakra correspondences, and these come from different traditions. So I'm connecting it all. So you might say, well, Mercury isn't water, which you're right, but I'm giving you multiple correspondences. And they may be at cross purposes with each other, but I also want you to have all these different perspectives to play with, because for some people they might, I don't know, connect more with the idea of a Mercury finger. or they might connect less with Mercury, but more with the idea that it's a water element finger. So I didn't stick with just one tradition. I tend not to do that in Soul Shift anyway. I try to combine these different perspectives, and then ultimately what you can do is decide which one of the correspondences or the whatever the meanings that the different traditions attribute, you can decide which one works for you. Does that make sense? I just want to make sure, because a couple of you said you were confused, and I always want to stop when I hear that and see if I can describe something in a different way to help it move through. No, technically there are no specific planetary correspondences to the thumb. It's these 4 fingers: Jupiter, Saturn, Apollo, and Mercury. Jupiter, Saturn, Apollo, Mercury. Jupiter, Saturn, Apollo, Mercury. Jupiter, Apollo, Mercury. Yeah, it's exactly right. So these are the same as in the mudras. That's exactly right, Vanya. So what I'm teaching you with the elements is rooted really in Vedic astrology, that it comes from the Vedas, right, which is the oldest spiritual texts on the planet. So they predate a lot of even the planetary correspondences. Yeah, I am an omniist or an omnist, right? Like I believe in all paths, all traditions. But I also have kind of a hybrid background and certainly a hybrid spiritual training and practice. So I kind of am all over the place. And I often find that I like to mix it up, because sometimes the Vedic stuff really works for me and then sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I like to just stick with, more of a pagan interpretation or more of a, Judeo-Christian interpretation. So it's kind of all of the different things at once. Okay. So you take what works for you and leave the rest. Okay. So Jupiter. So again, what are we releasing with Jupiter? What can we let go of with the Jupiter finger? We can let go of fear. It's an air element finger, so we can blow fear away. And literally, you can, if you're afraid, massage your finger out, away, blood flow away from your palm. Right. Just if you are afraid, you sit and you just go like that. If you're working on a client, let's talk about how this could happen, right? If you were sitting here with me and you're like, Athena, I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid. As I'm talking to you, I would be taking your hand and starting to massage your index finger. And you might be like, why is she doing that? Right? This gives you, again, an additional modality, additional tools, additional things that you can do when you're working with clients or working with your kids. I've done this with my kids, when they're having a temper tantrum or they're just so worked up about something, or my son gets panic attacks and he doesn't know what I'm doing. He just thinks I'm rubbing his hands, right? And I'll rub all the fingers, but I spend a little bit longer on that index finger, right? Again, pulling out, away, right? Away from the heart is to release, and toward the heart. And that's what the Aztec healer did. The ceremony that I'm teaching you during week 3 was very focused on away from the heart, toward the heart, right? If you are moving energy toward the heart, you are calling it into your system. If you are pushing energy away from the heart, you are removing it from the system. The heart is the core of everything. And in the Aztec cosmology, the heart was the center, not just of your body, but of the entire universe. It was the center of the planet. And it's your 4th chakra. It's right in the middle of your body. So if you think about it as being sort of like the way station, right, where everything either has to move away from the heart to be released from your energy or towards your heart, right? If you're feeling afraid, you move it away, 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 right? Okay. Middle finger. The Saturn finger. I didn't want to do it, but I had to. I wasn't really giving you the finger. Although Saturn kind of gives us the finger, right? Saturn's a tough planet. If you need to release anger, get it out. If you're pissed off, move it away. You don't have to use a wand. That's why I'm saying your hands are very powerful. That's exactly right, Lynette. So just move it away, move it away, move it away, right? Yeah. And then again, if you're trying to call in the energies of Saturn, right, which is, you have all of this in your worksheets, right? So wisdom, discipline, responsibility, integrity, right? Those are the gifts of Saturn. Then you pull it towards you, right? Like trying to get wise, trying to pull in that wisdom, trying to pull in those That's strength, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, so that's what you call in and release with the middle finger. Your ring finger is your Apollo finger. Candace. Yeah, so here's the thing. We are talking about the right hand, which in traditional palmistry is about 75 to 80% of the story. Your right hand is, in palmistry, is where you are right now. Your left hand is kind of the story that got you where you are. So a palmist is going to look at both of your hands. But for our purposes, because this isn't a seminar in palmistry, this is kind of an inclusive seminar in the energy of hands, I'm really focusing on the right hand. The other reason I'm focusing on the right hand is I'm training you to be a healer, and the right hand is your projecting hand. This is what you are providing to the world, right? If you're doing self-healing, then we usually use our left hand, which is more of our receiving hand. But as healers, your right hand is primarily what you're going to be working with. Does that make sense? So there's multiple reasons why we focus on the right. Okay, so that Apollo finger is where you release grief. Who needs to release grief, right? You can release worry and grief with your thumb, but the Apollo finger is also a place where you can release grief and suffering to a certain extent. Apollo is associated with creativity, passion, talent, optimism, courage. So this is also the loss of faith. You can release that too. Do you ever feel like you lose your faith? And you can lose your faith in a lot of things, right? You can lose your faith in people, you can lose your faith in the world, you can lose your faith in yourself, right? So it's like about releasing all of that and then calling in optimism and calling in faith. So your aquamarine ring, it's up to you, right? So I usually wear mine on my ring finger because that finger is a finger that you release fear with, and I usually wear it on my left hand. But you can think about what you call in with the Jupiter finger, right? Which is a lot of energies of renewal, good fortune, and those are energies that are aligned with aquamarine. So I think it's a good finger for that ring, or that good ring for that finger. But you could also really pinch it down and wear it as a ring, pinky ring too, if you wanted to. Either way. Left hand bonus class. I love it. We can always weave that into another conversation, That's why I love our classes, because it's my goal is to leave you wanting a little bit more, But it also allows you to decide what rabbit holes you want to go down, and then where you're yeah, the class was enough. I got it, right? Loss of faith. Grief makes you lose your faith, doesn't it? Is there a God? Why would God let this happen, right? That's that finger. And then with the Apollo finger, you can call in success, optimism. If it's hard for you to shine and share your gifts with the world, you can heal with this finger. Okay. And then the Mercury finger is your pinky finger. My Mercury is in Cancer, so I've always felt really connected to water energy with my Mercury. If your Mercury is not in a water sign, then you may feel slightly differently. Your Mercury finger, Mercury is associated with communication, intelligence, learning, adaptability, thinking, curiosity, relationships, and intuition. And so those are the things we call in with our Mercury finger. What we release, are you ready? Start rubbing, everybody. Some of you need to rub real hard. You release unworthiness. Get out. Go away. Yeah, so Adriana, you too, right? We both have water placements with Mercury. People always accuse me of making them go to sleep when I talk, which I don't understand. I don't think of my voice as being that soothing or sing-songy, but I have people say, I can't even listen to you, I just fall asleep. But I think it's Mercury in Cancer. Releasing unworthiness, bye. And then calling in authenticity, right? Connection. The antidote to unworthiness is connection. Because if you understand your connection to the universe, to each other, to all that is, then your worthiness is obvious. Because I don't think you would tell me I'm not worthy. I don't think you would. I wouldn't tell you you're not worthy, but I would tell myself I'm not worthy. But if you and I are the same, then me telling myself I'm unworthy is the same thing as telling you that you're not worthy. So all of a sudden we're like, well, I guess we're all worthy, right? There's that. So is this starting to come together and make sense for you now? Is anybody still confused? Because please always say it if you're confused, and because it's my job to be clear. And if I'm not, it's my responsibility to clarify. If your Mercury's in Virgo, it's the same, Deanna. It's just, it doesn't, what sign your Mercury's in, if it's in a water sign, you just may feel a connection to what I'm talking about a little more strongly. But it doesn't mean that this doesn't align for you. Yeah. Interesting, right? On your left hand. Oh, thank you, Michelle. That's not interesting, yeah. I find Rock's voice very soothing too. Rub it in the heat, releasing it out. Okay. Any questions? You're good? Okay. Good. Now, let's talk about the lines very quickly, because you do have lines in your hands too, darling. And we won't go into a full description of the hands, but I think it's good for you just to be aware. So you have your lifeline, right? You have your heart line and your fate line. Those are the 3 lines that most people focus on. There is this sort of, what I was taught is the cradle of intuition, which is sort of like this very faint line, and some palmists, I don't know if you can see, mine is very, very faint. It's weird, and I think it's because, I'm actually not sure why it happened, but I have almost no fingerprints. Like when I go to do notary stuff, like I just bought our new Sage Goddess building at the end of the year last year, and we had to like sign all the escrow papers. They have to like do mine a bunch of times because I don't have fingerprints. It's kind of weird. I mean, if you push really hard, you can get one, but they like really have to push hard to get a fingerprint out of me. So even the lines in my palms are not that intense. Things to look for in your lines. So your lifeline and your fate line oftentimes will intersect. Mine do not. So some people do, some people don't. That doesn't mean, I mean, in my experience, that doesn't mean much. It's just something to notice if your lifeline and your fate line connect. You have a similar line on both hands, so that's interesting. Your lifeline, sometimes if you look toward the bottom, the base of your lifeline, it can kind of tell you if there's, I mean, mine has kind of a fork in the road toward the end of my lifeline, which I've been told by multiple people may mean that I move to a different place toward the end of my life, which doesn't surprise me. I've often thought as soon as my kids are out of school, I probably will live full-time in another country. Probably Mexico. Just because I've lived in the US all my life and I love it, but I also really want to explore the world and at least live outside of the US for about half the year in the later part of my life. When it doesn't connect, it doesn't mean much, actually. I mean, I wouldn't read too much into it. Some people will make meaning of the 2 lines not connecting, but mine don't connect. And I've never had anybody make meaning of that before. So if you have a fork, something will shift. Circumstances in your life, it can mean a shift in your health too, but it can also mean a shift in where you live or how you live. You don't have fingerprints either. Honestly, Australia is on my list because I spent a lot of time in Australia about 10 years ago and I didn't want to come home. If you've ever been to Australia, you know what I mean. It's like, I mean, maybe you didn't like it, but I love Australia. Yeah, Carol and I are moving to Mexico. We've already talked about it, that we might want to just be old ladies together in Mexico. I really do love Mexico. Okay, and then, so let's go through. So the heart line or the love line is associated with emotions and all the matters of the heart. This includes sex, romance, and friendship. So you can trace the heart line, which is this line right here at the top. That's my heart line. You can trace the heart line for emotional healing. So again, pulling toward the heart, pushing away from the heart. And again, if you're working with a client and they're really struggling with grief, for example, right? So you'd want to move the grief through, right? Move the unworthiness through, move the grief through, and then move that through their heart line. Or call in emotional healing, right? And then call in the energies. So you'd want to call in feeling worthy, feeling loved, feeling seen, right? Calling all that toward the heart. I'm doing it without you being able to see it. So calling in emotional healing or releasing what's too heavy for your heart. Does that make sense? No, it does not matter whether you are right or left-handed. That does not matter. Yeah. You have a fork too? Okay. Let's see. So now we're on page 6 of our worksheets. And by the way, I gave you scenarios, and I'm going to tell you why. And we'll talk about this more during session 4 and also during our coaching and integration. So I just want to give you a preview. I would like you to fill in answers to all of the questions I asked you. I'm not going to ask you to turn it in. You don't lose points if you don't, but it's part of the work of the class. And so, for example, with the heart line, it says, imagine a time when you felt love and the ability to freely give it. When we do holographic healing, what we do is we imagine that time, and then we imagine ourselves during that time, a hologram of ourselves, basically. Because if you believe, like I believe, that all timelines of your life are happening all the time simultaneously, then if you can remember that time, you can actually call the energy of that time back in. You can actually connect with a hologram of yourself in that more emotionally healed space and begin to embody that frequency. You can align with that frequency, and that's what we call holographic or interdimensional healing. That you still exists in another space-time continuum, right? It could be why people love manicures so much. I mean, it's really, once you start learning this and you start working the energies and you start working with yourself and with your family and with clients, especially if you have clients right now, I've often thought this would be such a fun professional development for massage therapists, because how cool for them to be able to weave some of this in. So, because most massage therapists, by the time they get to your hands, they're like, it's like they're really there for your back or your neck or whatever. So they kind of just do it like short shrift, but they're not really. Whereas I think with this, you could really get in and start to move some energy through the hands. I've noticed a lot of people get arthritis in their hands, and I've often wondered if there's a relationship between energy being stuck in the body and arthritic experiences in the hands, right? Yeah, so this is page 6. So this is the heart line question that you would answer. And then the headline is associated with the mind. So that's the line right below. So here's my heart line. Here's my headline right there, the line right below it. Associated with the mind and how we think. And this is the line for mental healing, right? So imagine a time when your head felt clear and focused. If you're trying to focus, you want to pull the energy of your headline towards you, or if you're using a wand to do this, toward the heart. And I want you to really start to practice this. You will notice a difference. And again, you can pull it all the way up and through. The Aztecs did it all the way to the shoulder, because they felt like the shoulder, for the Aztecs, the shoulders were these, it's hard to describe what I experienced during that ceremony, but they felt that these were connection points where the energy then would disperse through your central channel. So it was important to get the energy from your hands to your shoulders, or from your shoulders out of your hands. So they always started with the shoulders and ended with the fingers. Interesting, right? So start to work with that. If you're trying to call in mental healing or call in any of these things like focus or clarity, or again pulling toward the heart, if you're trying to release confusion, then you're going to move the energy away from the heart. Again, always toward the heart to receive, away from the heart to release. I want you to come to my house, Lindsay. She's like, I do a scalp massage when I'm shampooing. Can you imagine how delightful that feels? I think I would just purr and fall asleep. No, it's always on your right hand, even if you're doing it on yourself, and even if you are left-handed. That's a great question. Yeah, is it feeling buzzy? My right hand is like, yeah. Okay, and then your fate line, like we talked about, is that line that kind of cuts between them, goes right down the center of the hand, right? Because your lifeline is the curvy line closer to your thumb. Your fate line is down the center of your palm. So this is the line of destiny, ambition, right? So this is the line that called the career line. Work this line for manifestation, right? So when you're trying to manifest something, what are you doing? You are massaging that fate line. You're calling that energy stream in. When you're trying to, release blockages to manifestation, then you're going to work that line away, right? Isn't that fun? No, so it's always the right hand, whether you're right-handed or left-handed. Okay, and my fate line is very light too. The lifeline, like we just talked about, is the one that's closer to your thumb. That's your lifeline. Associated with vitality, health, personal journey. Less about how long you live, right? A short lifeline does not mean a short life. It's very important to tell you that. More about how you live and your level of physical energy. It'll show you how adventurous your life is going to be. You work with this line for physical healing. So again, if you're trying to manifest healing of any part of your body, you're going to massage the energy from that lifeline through. And if you are trying to release pain, discomfort, illness, then you're going to massage it away from your heart through that lifeline. Yeah, it might be very light. My fate line is the lightest of all my lines in my hand. It's very hard to even probably see. It's there. But it's not as strong as my head, heart, and life. So any questions? That took us through the end of our worksheets on page 7. Now, in this question, this is a perfect holographic healing question. And by the way, when I say holographic healing, I just want to clarify, because this is what the Aztecs believed too, which is why I'm bringing it up during this month. The Aztecs believed that all of your timelines were operating. And so all they had to do to heal you was access a healed version of you. And that they could do that through these ceremonies by literally just calling it in, right, and connecting you with that energy stream. And so that's why we're talking about all of this right now. So holographic healing is just accessing a hologram of you on a different timeline, having a different experience. If you're not well, there is a healed version of you that is. If you're overweight, but you were very thin in younger parts of your life or whatever, then that hologram of you still exists. So when people want to lose weight, I'm always like, was there a time in your life when you were at your ideal weight? Because we can go in and access a hologram of that and pull it forward. It's an interesting concept, right? Or if you're very depressed, but there was a time in your life where you were buoyant and happy and, happy-go-lucky, and you want to feel more like that. That's why it's so important to meditate and really remember that time and how you felt and where you were and what life looked like during that time. One of the things I'm working on right now is not just the past, but the future holograms. I was talking to Claire about this today. Claire and I were talking about how there is a future beyond this, where we aren't thinking about COVID 24 hours a day, and where, life, I believe, returns to a semblance of normalcy. And so one of the things I'm trying to do in my own practice to be able to hold space for everybody is to access forward some of those holograms past this now moment and connect into, prosperity, enjoyment, connection, hugging, intimacy, all of those things, so that I can bring in some of that energy now to try and calm the field. And it helps me. I mean, when I said that, did you have a sense of, what came up for you? What comes up for you when you think about a hologram of yourself in the future that is not, struggling with any of the now challenges, right? It's exactly right. You're entraining yourself both to past iterations and future experiences. that you can bring into this moment for calming, for peace, for better physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health and well-being, right? So all of those things are accessible to you all the time. Ooh. Yeah, I like that. So if you, like Casey said, he wants to call in a future iteration of himself because he hasn't been at his ideal weight before, but he knows that he will be in the future, and so he connects into that and pulls that into this now moment. I mean, that's just one example. Not everybody struggles with weight. Not everybody struggles with depression. Not everybody struggles with anxiety, right? Not everybody struggles with physical or health challenges. But if you do, this is an interesting and fun way to play. And what I like about it is, what I have found for most people is they get stuck. They get discouraged and they get stuck. And they start going, I'm always going to be like this. I'm always going to feel this way. I'm always going to be, and it's like, and that's why I struggle with, even as an MS patient, right? It's like when I talk to other MS patients, they're always like, no, but this is an incurable disease. I'm always like, no, I think I'm going to be healthy and well my whole life. And they look at me like I'm the biggest Pollyanna. I mean, literally, I've had people say, I feel really sorry for you because I don't think you understand you have an incurable disease. It's like, no, I feel really sorry for you because you believe that's true. Like, am I wrong? You're right. You're wrong. I'm whatever. Like, what? But I've literally had people say that to me. And so I play just because I don't like to take anybody else's word for it. We're all human, right? Which means we can all make mistakes, and our thinking is all somewhat fundamentally flawed because we're not God. So it's like, I prefer to play in the realm of possibility, and it's working for me. So it's a way to get you unstuck because you don't always have to be sad, unhappy, unhealthy, bored, discouraged, anxious, fearful, whatever. You don't have to be like that. But people will say, you're unrealistic, you're crazy, you don't have any proof, that's not scientific. And I'm a trained scientist, so I'm always like, I got my own proof. I did my own study. It's not double blind, but I have some good data. And honestly, at this point in my life, I have good data. I've been working with thousands of people for a decade. And I've seen this stuff work for people in some big miraculous ways. I mean, I have watched and witnessed people literally change their lives and their bodies and their relationships, and on every level. So no one can tell me it's not real. Now I can say it's not real for them. You know what I mean? Like, probably isn't real for them. But that doesn't mean it's not real for you. Do you think that your perspective matters? It ultimately comes down to that. Do you think your thoughts matter? And that's not a rhetorical question. That's actually a very important question because it will guide the rest of your practice. If you think your thoughts are vibrational and have an impact on outcomes, then what I'm saying is probably true. And if you don't, then what I'm saying is probably nuts. And either of those responses is okay with me because. And most doctors will tell you. I mean, I work with a lot of doctors. I have a general practitioner. I have a neurologist. I have a psychologist. I have a lot of different people that I work with in my life. I have about 3 MDs and 2 PhDs. And they're all on the same page, and these are smart people. But they have all said to me, Athena, I don't know exactly how to explain it, but I absolutely believe that if you have a positive mindset, you will get better faster. I've never had an MD tell me, no, you know what? I don't think your mindset has anything to do with your health outcomes. I've never had an MD tell me that. If one did, I would be very surprised. It's mostly non-doctors who are like, oh, that's nuts. Meanwhile, MDs are like, I've seen plenty of people heal because they believe they will, right? Yeah. Yeah, and if that's the weirdest thing anybody tells you, lucky you. Woo! It's true, Sharon. Thoughts are things. So that concludes session 1. of Pillars of Priestessing Soul Shift for August. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a lot for tonight. You'll get a little bit of a review next Wednesday with Crystal Masters, although we're kind of moving it in a different direction because we're really going to be talking about how to channel the energy of your hands to work with gemstones by gridding with gemstones. And that takes everything we just talked about tonight to the next level. And what I'm going to provide you next week is a list, I'm working on it right now, of gemstone correspondences for the fingers, so that you can really, if you really want to start to, curate jewelry or start to, a lot of people are using chipstones to grid their hands, right? You can do that too. You can actually, I'm also going to teach you in Crystal Masters next week how to do this remotely. So what you can do by proxy really is take a blank version of this. So let's say like this one. And you can work remotely with someone, and it'd be better if you had a picture of their hand, right? But you don't have to have it. And then you can actually work with an image like this remotely and grid it for them. So have them laying with their arms outstretched and you doing the work, because energetically there's an alignment. And so we're going to talk about how to work with the hands as healing tools in a remote healing context too, because a lot of you are doing healing work, but you're doing it at a distance right now because of where we are in the world. And I think this is still a really helpful tool, even if you can't be in the same room with the person that you're working with. But you know what? Do it with your family, with your loved ones. I've been massaging my kids' hands since they were babies, right? It used to be how I got them out of temper tantrums. Everyone instantly calms when you take their hands and start to rub them. I've never seen anyone not respond well to that. It feels good. It feels like love. It moves the energy. Remember that everyone in your life, whether they believe in magic or not, is running energy through their hands. So sit your partner down, sit your kids down, get out some of your oils. You've made beautiful blends in Soul Shift this year. At night, take your Morpheus blend that we made together last month, mine's on my nightstand, and massage it into your hands, and keep the graphic right there and say, I release, I release, I release, I release, I call in, I call in, I call in, I call in, and go through your fingers, right? The more you do it, the more easily you'll remember, and you won't need to look at the image anymore. So have fun with that tonight and over the coming weeks. Okay, so yeah, that and mudras, right? Which we learned about in Crystal Masters a couple of months ago. Do you think it'd be good to review that next week, or is it kind of redundant? Would you guys like to hear about mudras again? I was kind of going back and forth because I'm like, I did cover it already in Crystal Masters, but it's been a while. I think I'm going to cover it, unless you tell me that you really don't want to hear about it again, but it would only take me a few minutes to go through it, and we have quite a few folks who are new. And I don't know, I like a review of things sometimes. So maybe I'll just go through it for 5 minutes and not dilly-dally on it. I'll just make myself a note of that too. Or actually, Alexis, will you make a note? And then we'll convene and talk about Crystal Masters too. Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys for being here. What a pleasure. Thank you for being open and receiving everything that I shared with you tonight. I value you. And I take my job very seriously. So I'm always trying to do what's best for the collective, and sometimes that's tricky. When I was a little girl, I never thought I would be teaching spiritual development to very seasoned practitioners during a pandemic. That's like when career day came, and the nice people came and said, what do you want to do, little girl? I wasn't like, I want to teach people how to manage their energy during a fucking pandemic. Like, that was not my, that's not what I thought I was going to be doing. So I'm not uniquely well qualified to do this, but I'm doing my best, and thank you for seeing me. Onward and upward. Thanks, you guys. Okay, so the work continues. Tomorrow, you won't see as much of me. I have my MS infusion, so that takes me off the grid for most of the day. And I think you will see me a little bit on Friday, but I can't remember for what. I think I'm just going to come live and say hi, because Friday is mostly planning meetings for SG. And then I have my birthday this weekend, so my birthday gift to myself is I'm going to try to stay off social media for the most part this weekend. I don't know how successful I'll be, but we're going to go to the beach, and I'm baking a cake, and we can't do anything fancy, so we're kind of just doing family time. And then starting next weekend, we're going to pick up with Ovid. So we talked about that already. And so next Wednesday is Crystal Masters. I hope you're looking forward to it. I did want to tell you, it's last call for Côte Liquée perfume. If you want that for our week 3 journey, what did I do with it? Here it is. You should order this in time to receive it. And the code today is Goddess18. We have 100 bottles left, so if you want one, it is there. This is Tobacco Absolute, Cacao Absolute. This is a yummy one. And then we have 100 left of the little Soul Shift Beboppers. I did the first one for you guys, these little glass gems. So if you want one left, those are there. I'm not repeating designs, so there are lots of other cute ones to come, but this is the only Soul Shift one, so if you'd like one, there's about 100 left. I do an infusion called Tysabri, and I do it every 6 to 8 weeks, and it helps me a lot. I've been on it for 10 years for my MS. So I do a lot of alternative therapies, obviously, but I also do a pretty traditional therapy too. I always say I'm the best patient my doctors have because I take my health very seriously, but then I also do a lot of weird stuff where they're like, I don't know why you do that, but something's working, and so keep it up. The perfume is called Côte Liquée, who I will teach you about during session 3. She is going to be our guide for our journey this month. Côte Liquée is the Aztec goddess of healing. She's also the goddess who created the moon and the stars. It is a violent story of Côte Liquée. But one of the things that Côte Liquée reminds us, and that's why we're working with her this month and journeying with her this month, one of the things she teaches us is, and I'm going to leave you with this tonight. Ready? Ready for the mic drop? Côte Liquée medicine, if you will. One of the things Côte Liquée teaches us is, as a healer, you can either create healing or you can create harm. It goes both ways. And part of it is, the way you create healing and not harm is by healing yourself first. Unhealed people have a very hard time creating healing for others. That's why you got to get this train on the tracks. You know what I mean? If you're going to do this work in a big way, especially during a time of intense challenge on this planet like we're in right now, you got to get you right. And then you can help and heal without harm. You know what I mean? But when we're out in the world and we're not healing our own stuff, and then we're, under the illusion that we're helping other people, it's like we can actually create some swirls of some real complicated energies. All right, you guys. Yeah, physician heal thyself. It's really true. That's the reason, Dr. Chris mentioned it. I don't know where we were, Dr. Chris, when you mentioned it, but you said, most therapists are in therapy, right? Alexis, will you spell out Côte Liquée and put a link up for the perfume real quick? I would really appreciate it. Some people are trying to figure out the spelling. It's Coatlicue, Côte Liquée. It's a Nahuatl word. But anyway, therapists need therapy. Doctors need doctors. We have to continue the healing process for ourselves so that we can support that healing process for others. All right, cheers, everybody. Have a great rest of your evening. It was great to be with you tonight, and I will look forward to seeing you next Wednesday for Crystal Masters, and I'll see you before that, too. I'm probably going to come live, I don't know, at some point this weekend and just say hi to you. It would be nice to spend a little bit of time in your company this weekend. So thank you so much. I'll see you guys soon. Have a great night.